Most men lose women without ever knowing why. Not because they lacked effort, but because they revealed too much. In this video, you'll uncover the forbidden psychology behind silence, why women chase the man who withholds while ignoring the one who bears his soul, and how a forgotten insight from Freud can shift the balance, turning restraint into power and attraction into inevitability. If honesty has ever pushed her further away, what you're about to hear will change how you see every word you speak. She told you she wanted kindness, stability, a man who listens, who stays. But the man she disappeared with was nothing like that. He was erratic, impulsive, reckless with his future. He had the same look in his eyes as someone standing too close to the edge of a rooftop at 3 a.m., and she leaned toward him anyway. This contradiction isn't rare. It's a pattern, a terrifyingly predictable one. Consider this. In one of the largest studies on dating apps, researchers found that women swipe right on less than 5% of men. Less than 5. The rest are discarded. And who makes it through that sieve? Not the men who matched her words, kind, stable, reliable. The men who captured her biology's attention were those who appeared dominant, scarce, unpredictable. That's the first secret. When she says, "I want a nice guy," she is speaking to her conscious mind. But when she chooses, her body is listening to a script written millions of years before she learned to form words. Let me give you an example. A 29-year-old woman, let's call her Elena, tells her therapist she's done with toxic men. She swears she's ready for someone gentle. Within 2 months, she's entangled again with a musician who lives out of his car, cheats on her regularly, and disappears for weeks. Her therapist asks, "What drew you to him?" Elena shrugs and says, "I don't know. There was just something about him." That something is the forbidden word most psychologists are too careful to speak. Instinct. Freud hinted at it in his clinical notes, writing that a woman's choice often hides layers of unconscious compulsion. He called it repetition compulsion, the tendency to reenact ancient desires under the illusion of free will. Today, neuroscience confirms it. Brain scans show that women's reward centers light up differently when confronted with dominant or unpredictable male traits. The same circuitry that once ensured survival in the wild now drives the chaos of modern dating. Here's the second secret. This isn't about morality. It isn't about her lying to you. It's about biology dragging her down an ancient tunnel she doesn't even know she's walking through. And the deeper you look, the clearer it becomes. Female choice is not what it seems. This is only the beginning. Because once you understand what triggers her unconscious selection system, you'll realize why her words and her actions have never matched, and why every nice guy story ends with the same silent question: what's wrong with me? The answer is darker than you think. To descend into this question, you must first strip away the moral language. Forget good and bad, loyal and disloyal. Those words belong to culture, to the thin film of civilization. Biology speaks in a different tongue, one of survival, reproduction, and the cold arithmetic of genes. Freud knew this. He argued that human desire is not transparent to itself. What you say you want is not what you actually want. The unconscious leaks through in compulsions, slips, repetitions. Desire is a disguise, and nowhere is the disguise more potent than in female choice. Let's look at fertility. Modern research shows that during the most fertile days of the menstrual cycle, women's preferences shift dramatically. Studies reveal a heightened attraction to men with sharper jawlines, deeper voices, and more dominant behaviors. Even women in committed relationships report stronger fantasies about strangers who display these traits. It's not loyalty that peaks during ovulation, it's the lure of the ancient hunter. Then there is the paradox of the dark triad: narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy. Traits we are told to despise, traits that destroy relationships, communities, even civilizations. And yet women report higher arousal toward men who score higher on these scales, especially in short-term contexts. Why? Because these men project confidence, resource control, and unpredictability, signals of strength in the primal economy of survival. The overlap of disgust and desire complicates it further. Neuroscientists at UCLA ran a chilling experiment. Women were shown rapid flashes of male faces while their facial muscles were measured for micro-responses. Here's what they found. The very same faces that triggered subtle expressions of disgust also triggered signs of arousal. The body could not distinguish cleanly between threat and attraction. The circuits tangled, like two wires sparking in the dark. Think about what that means. The man who unsettles her may also ignite her. The man who feels safe may fail to stir her at all. Jung would call this the shadow at play. What she consciously rejects, she unconsciously seeks. Her polite list of qualities in a partner functions like a mask, concealing the forces beneath. Not maliciously, not even knowingly, but inevitably. And here lies the cruelty. The men who obey the script, who bring kindness, stability, presence, are often filtered out before they're even seen. Not because they lack value, but because their signals don't resonate with the survival code etched into her biology. Every dating app algorithm magnifies this. In the anonymity of swipes, her instincts have free rein. No reputation to restrain her, no family to shame her, no slow courtship to override biology. The selection becomes purer, more brutal, more ancient. Scarcity, risk, dominance. Those are the currencies being traded beneath the glowing screen. This is the descent, the realization that what you've been competing with is not her stated logic, but her evolutionary circuitry. You can argue with her words, you cannot argue with her DNA, and yet the descent isn't complete until you ask the question that burns underneath it all. If her choices are programmed by biology, what does that make of you? And why do you keep losing to men who should have no chance at all? Now we turn the mirror toward you. Not the idea of you, the lived you. The one who stayed up at 2 a.m. wondering why she ghosted after you gave her everything she said she wanted. Here's the truth you've been trained not to see. You were playing by her words, he was playing by her instincts. The nice guy doesn't lose because he is weak. He loses because he appeals to the conscious self, the part of her that writes lists, reads self-help, swears she wants kindness. But her unconscious runs the selection, and the unconscious is merciless. It doesn't care about promises, it cares about the body's ancient calculus, dominance, scarcity, unpredictability, risk. Think back to the moments you lost her, the way she smiled at you politely, but leaned toward him when he spoke, the way her eyes wandered when you tried to impress her with stability. You thought it was because you lacked something, but it was because you offered everything her instincts could not feel scarcity for. Freud would call this a misrecognition of desire. You confused the I that speaks her conscious narrative with the it that chooses, her id, her body, her lineage whispering in the dark. You weren't rejected, you were misaddressing the wrong mind. Every man who has felt invisible knows this pain. But here is the liberation, buried beneath the wound. If her choice is not truly hers, then your rejection is not truly yours to carry. You did not lose because you were lesser. You lost because you were more evolved than the script her DNA was still reading from. The dangerous man is not better. He is older, a ghost from her past, a pattern drawn when survival meant seeking those who defied danger. And you belong to a later chapter of evolution, a chapter that values peace, cooperation, stability, qualities biology has not yet caught up to honor. This is the inversion. Her choices are not judgments of your worth. They are echoes of a program that does not know how to read you yet. So the next time you feel the sting of being overlooked, remember, you weren't too little, you were too much. Too much evolution, too much safety, too much of what she says she wants, but hasn't learned to feel. And the final note? The rejection that broke you was never personal. It was prehistoric. You were never rejected. You were simply too evolved for her DNA.